to Bill Randles, with the medical marijuana, I agree with you. Do you take that as a nullification by California of a federal statute, or did they just legalize it according to state statute? Because my understanding is the federal government's still arresting people in California for medical marijuana. So they really didn't nullify the federal statute. I guess the hardest question I got, unfortunately for a very dear friend, and my biggest concern on this issue, and I guess I'm the fly in the ointment, nullification scares me. I do think that's what existed under the Articles of Confederation, and that's why we have a Constitution in the first place, because we didn't want a single state to be able to nullify federal law. That was the problem that caused the Constitution in the first place. I know Jefferson wrote Kentucky Resolutions. He later corrected himself. I don't know if you're familiar with a letter in which he calls the people the true corrective. I think the problem that we have with our Constitution today, this could be directed to every single person in the room, and I'm guilty of it myself. Have you ever voted for an elected official who violated the Constitution of the United States? Because if you have, you're not part of Jefferson's solution. Madison talked about nullification, as you said, towards the end of his life. He described it as a fatal inlet to anarchy and a contradiction in terms. Madison's solution was different. He did not want a single state to nullify. He wanted a majority of states to nullify. He called for a constitutional amendment in a letter, 1835. John C. Calhoun ignored it. That's my question.
Medical marijuana is nullification, and it's very well done. You're right, the federal government's arresting a few people in California, large-scale traffickers. What they're not doing is going in and arresting the guys running the medical marijuana shops. They know where to find them. I saw two of them on Bill O'Reilly a couple of weeks ago. Did y'all see them?
Yes.
$20 million gross a year. It's pretty easy to find them, and the IRS knows where they are. They call themselves nonprofit, but they wouldn't say how much money they personally made off that nonprofit. Look, if that's not nullification, I don't know what is. The federal law says you can't have or sell marijuana. They're having and selling marijuana in vast quantities under a pretext of legality, under a fig leaf. So I think it's classic. Now, I'm going to give Jim a little introduction to the answer to his question. Sure, not that he needs it, but the nullification discussion you've got to keep in mind when you refer to the founders. The founders were discussing a very narrow range of federal options. They never envisioned a notion of where the federal government would impose uniformity on the states in a host of ways. They embraced state differences, huge state differences. As a matter of fact, when our Constitution was established, many people don't know this, several states had established churches. And they did for a long time. The federal government didn't try to stamp that out. Now, I'm not saying it's a good idea, but I'm just using it as an illustration of examples of differences. The states were the laboratory of democracy, and they were free to function very differently. What has happened recently is the federal government has pressed the states into the same mold, so they become not much more than poorly paid provinces of the federal government. That's why you're seeing the resurgence in the idea of nullification. And I don't think we should get hung up on terms. We can call it nullification from the negative, or from the positive. We can say limited government. We can talk about state sovereignty. It's all the same notion. The federal government has a lane it's supposed to be in, and the states have their own lane, and then the people have the biggest lane. We flipped that around. And so that's why what the founders were saying about it is instructive, but in a sense not determinative, because they never envisioned a world where the federal government would occupy so much of our activities. Jim?
I can't improve on that. Can you believe I said that? I can't improve on that. The only thing I would add is that this is a debate and a discussion that is worthy of us having. All right? Now, we might not agree. Even, I don't think our founders agreed, okay, on the issue. And so, but what we do need to do is call into question those lanes. And that's what we're doing when we're advocating that a state stand in the gap on behalf of the people, all right, against tyrannical government. And that's what we have. We have tyrants that refuse They can read, okay? So they are refusing. I mean, I'm not talking about a 2,000-page bill. I'm talking about a constitution. That's what? How many? Is it 3,500 words long? Right? And they can understand it, but they choose not to. As a matter of fact, they laugh in the face of the people that have elected them to ask them if they think a bill is constitutional. And, you know, it's time for a revolution.
Yeah.
You're right.
All right? And Jefferson said that it might, you know, it might have to be every 20 years or so, that we might need a bloody revolution, okay? I'm not advocating a bloody revolution. We need a revolution at the polls, all right? And we need to throw every one of the bums out, and I don't care what letter is behind their name, all right? I don't care if they're Republicans or Democrats. The question, have we ever voted for a politician, an elected official that has supported an unconstitutional bill? I've done it just recently. And I'm not proud of it. But if he's not careful, he's going to have some competition in 4 years. All right? I hope you all know who I'm talking about.
Yes, we know.
All right.